In this video, I'm going to work you through an example of solving a rational inequality using a sign chart. So the problem we're going to work, the directions are solve, and the inequality is x plus 8 over x minus 3 is greater than or equal to negative 16 over x squared minus 3x. Okay? So the first thing we want to do is we need 0 over here. So what you should do is add this fraction to both sides. So you're going to have, in your next step, you're going to have x plus 8 over x minus 3 plus, not negative, but the positive version of this fraction is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, now what you need to do, once you've got that done, is figure out how to combine these with a common denominator. So kind of what that looks like is, what I would do is factor this denominator, and you can see what the two denominators have in common. And what you're going to end up needing to do is you're going to have to multiply the first fraction, the top and bottom, by something to match the denominator of the second fraction. So these denominators, after you multiply, should match is greater than or equal to 0. So you've got to figure out what to multiply this first fraction by. Okay, so whatever it is, multiply it by the numerator and the denominator, and then the result down here should match the denominator that's down here. Okay, pause as you need to work on this. Once you've got the denominators to match, you're going to end up with a new numerator over that common denominator. So this fraction is going to change into a single fraction, and you're going to have plus the second fraction over the same denominator is greater than or equal to 0. Next, what you're going to do is you need to combine the two fractions. So you're going to add the first numerator to the second numerator to get a single numerator with like terms combined over the common denominator. And now you've got a single fraction is greater than or equal to 0. Okay. Last thing you want to do to help you find zeros and multiplicities is factor if necessary. If anything needs factored, do that now, and you'll end up with a fraction is greater than or equal to 0 with all the factors exposed. Okay? Alright, now just to give you a hint, what you should have at this point is you should have something squared over one factor times a binomial. Okay, so it should look something like that. Alright, once you've got that accomplished, the next thing you're going to do is we're going to think of the fraction on the left. We're going to think of it as y. So our goal is to figure out where y is greater than or equal to 0, where y is positive or y equals 0. So we're going to set up a number line chart that we're going to cut at the 3 zeros from our factors up here. So you're going to cut it at your 3 zeros, whatever those are. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Those are your x values. And then while you're at it, go ahead and list the multiplicities of each. Okay? After you got your zeros and multiplicities labeled, let's go ahead and figure out the y values for each of those x values. In other words, plug each x value into the entire y fraction and see what you get, and put the result up here for each 0. Now what remains, again, pause is necessary to work on this. Now we have to figure out the signs of y, the pluses and minuses, in between each 0. So let's start with the ends. To get the signs on the ends, you're going to have to look at your fraction here and find your leading term. So you're going to get, if you multiply it out the top, you'll get something. If you multiply out the bottom, you'll get something. And then make sure to reduce it, okay? And see what you get. Once you have your leading term, you can draw your end behavior, okay? Make sure to consider whether the ends grow or shrink or whether they're constant, okay? And then if your left end is above or below the x-axis, determines if this y value is positive or negative. And the same thing on the right end. Okay, if it's above the x-axis, it's positive. If it's below the x-axis, it's negative. Now use your multiplicities to determine if these are the same sign or different, if these are the same or different, and if these are the same or different. Once you know that information, go ahead and fill in the missing signs. Okay? Now, we're trying to figure out where y is greater than or equal to 0. So go through and put check marks next to the places where y is positive or equal to 0, and cross out any place where y is negative, because negatives aren't greater than or equal to 0. Once you've got check marks next to all the y values that satisfy this condition, then shade the corresponding x values on the x number line and convert that shading to your solution in interval notation. Okay? So work through all that, the check marks, the shading, and then the interval notation. Once you think you've done it all, come back and I'll give you the correct answer so that you can check your work. Okay, so the correct answer in interval notation is negative infinity to 0, not including 0, union 3, not including 3, to infinity. Okay? So see if you can figure out how that answer came about if you didn't get it already. Good luck.